So for step 27, attaching the RC equipment. Well, first we've got to attach the brackets for attaching the servo to the chassis. Now you'll notice that depending on the distance, you're going to have to determine which way those B11 pieces are going to go. Now in my case, I've already measured it out, and it looks like mine is longer than 20 millimeters, so that's the direction it's going to have to fit. But we are going to have to do this in stages because this is showing the Tamiya on-off switch attaching to the bottom here. Well, the Hobbywing one, it's a bit more complicated because it's not the same, so we're going to have to figure out our own spot for that, and then you'll see that we need to attach everything else. But again, we're going to have to figure this all out. So there are the screws and the washers that we need. These ones don't apply because it's not a Tamiya speed controller. And of course there is our chassis now, our speed controller, servo, and the two B11 pieces. So I'll set this up and we'll put this together. So the first thing we'll do is let's get these B11 pieces in place, and you'll notice that we need a BC6 screw, we need a washer, and then we're going to be screwing this in. Now, as I mentioned before, mine is greater than the 20 millimeters, so this needs to be attached facing that direction. So it's going to sit here, and then this screw is going to go into the hole here. So let's get this started. Now I'm going to have to try and make sure that I can get that level. There we go. Now just making sure that that is level with the backside of the servo itself. Looks pretty good. So I'll just tighten that down a bit. So there we go. There is our servo holder. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So we need to grab that MC6, grab that washer. This now facing out once again. And this time we'll stick it into this side. So again, just got to make sure, and I think it's going to be easier putting it down this way. There we go. So again, just make sure that that's level, which it is. So there we go. There's the back side. The servo mounts are pretty much flush with the servo. So now this is ready to be installed. So what we're going to do now is grab our chassis. This is going to sit down there at the bottom, and you'll notice that on one side there is a hole specifically for the servo on that side, and this is a bit more open. Just in case your servo was a different size, etc., there's a bit more play. So, but this side is definitely locked into that one spot. So we're going to grab one of these MA3 screws now, along with a washer. And now that's going to fit into that hole there. And we'll screw that down. Now I'm mostly going to go all the way. Just want to leave a little bit of room so that we can get that other screw in there. But it seems like it's working out fine. So let's get that screw, the washer, and we know that's going to fit right there. So same again. Let's screw this down. because everything seemed to be fine, we will screw this one down all the way. And now we can screw this one down all the way. Perfect. So now that that is attached, this is where it's going to start to get interesting. So you can see here that that's a Tamiya receiver switch, which is going to go on by 2 screws in the washers. Well, we can't do that because our Hobbywing one doesn't have that kind of a setup. So we won't be doing that. So we need to figure out a new placement. Now, in going forward and kind of figuring out how this is going to be placed on the chassis, etc., you can see where the motor wires are. So what I needed to figure out was how this will fit and where do all the cables go to make sure that this is going to work. Now, if you do what they show, where it's double-sided tape down on top of the servo, this can sit here. The wires are long enough to fit the wires coming from the motor, but it does show that the battery cable goes inside this hole here because the battery connectors come out at this side. So what I've decided to do here is we're going to put this as far to the edge of the servo. So rather than have it sit center or over here, we're going to go as far to the edge as we can. That will give enough of a lead coming out of there that you can play with that. I'm okay with that. And the on-off switch for the ESC, well, we can't really use it down there. So I'm going to attach this to the side of the ESC, just like that. And I'm going to set this up so that it is in the on position at all times. Because it doesn't matter, because you're going to use your battery to turn it on and off. So as long as you've turned your transmitter on, as soon as you plug in the battery, you'll have power. So that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to block off this hole with double-sided tape so that it's not open to the elements. This one, the receiver, needs to sit here as they show, and I use the Velcro because I use my receivers in multiple kits, and that's just going to sit there on the side. So I'm just going to go ahead and do all of that, and then I'll show you what I've done, and we'll see how this all fits. And everything should work as intended, just with a few modifications. So here is my setup. So what I've done is I've taken the ESC, moved it as far to this edge as possible and far to the back edge as possible. That means that when you look at this has to be slid through that hole right there. And of course I could turn it around, I think, if I wanted it to come out this way so that it actually is, you know, the correct way to grab it. But it's still going to be relatively short, but that's okay. I'm not too worried about that. And then you can see that this I've turned upside down in order for this to fit, because I'm using the Velcro. And then the other cable is coming out to the ESC right here. And as I said, I'll leave that on. And this, I don't really want it showing, so I'm not going to do what they suggested, because the other thing is, if you look underneath, I have used some foam tape that I had left over in a different kit, and I've put it on the outside because there's an indentation here. It's now hidden, and instead of it having the tape facing the other way where it's going to collect dirt, well, this side you're not worried about dirt coming in. So by taping it down that way, it just means this is a bit of a spongy side, but no dirt is going to be thrown up inside the chassis. So that gets rid of the hole that you'd normally use for the Tamiya switch. So I'm okay with that setup. And, you know, I'm going to probably do a bit of cleanup in terms of the wiring itself, but ultimately that's how I'm solving the issue of the switch, because I'm not worried about this being on all the time, because connecting the battery will do just the same as having the on-off switch available to you on the backside. So I'm good with that setup. So that means that step 27 is complete, and we can move on to step 28 now and attach the battery holders.